platform, so fingers crossed. Okay, we are all here. I don't know if there's any way to tell who's watching. I should have asked that. I'm just going to actually go ask it right now. Tell you what, if there's somebody watching, could you post a comment so that we know you're there? All right, we can see you in the chat. So at least Grace is here. Hi, Grace. I'll introduce myself and the speakers then, and yeah, we're on time. So for anybody in the audience who doesn't know me, I am one of the teachers here at Amherst High. I teach in the social studies department, and I'm welcoming 5 guests from various admission programs who are going to talk to us about transcripts and essays and recommendations, and tell us what selective college admissions are evaluating. So we have, I'm going in alphabetical order, Nathaniel Francois from Bates College, and one not here, Neftali Lara from Northwestern University, and Nikki Levine from Springfield College, Mary Pura from Simmons University, and Matt Sykes from American International College. So I'm going to take myself off the screen so you guys get a little bit bigger, and I'll be watching the chat and letting you know if there's any questions that seem like worth interrupting. So in alphabetical order, Nathania, you'll go first.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Francois, and yes, I work at Bates College. I've been with Bates for about 3 years now. I'm on my 3rd year, but I've been in admission for about 6 years. I'm on my 6th year. And so, hello. Oh, this is really cool. I guess we get to see everybody now. Sorry, I got distracted. So my job, yes, is to let you know what selective colleges are looking when we're looking at applications as it relates to the transcript, recommendations, and essays, and all that fun stuff. And so for Bates College, and I could only speak for Bates College, when looking at the transcript, I think what is very crucial is understanding that, you know, all of our students are unique and they come from many different backgrounds all over the world. And so what we want to do is really highlight your uniqueness and really be 100% positive that admitting you would mean that you'd be successfully academically successful at Bates, socially successful at Bates, and all other things professionally, personally, all of those components as well. But when looking at the transcript, for us, it's not just one student that we want to admit. We don't want to admit the same student because, again, you're all unique and come from many different backgrounds. So for us, it's really looking at what your high school offers you. And so with every transcript, we get a high school profile, and that high school profile will tell us what is offered at your high school. And so with that, you know, we understand that not every high school has APs, not every high school has honors, but we take that into consideration, right? And so my question to you is, based off of what your high school is offering you, how are you stretching the rigor? Because that's what we're asking when we're looking at your application documents. And so with the transcript, it tells the story. It flows. It could go up and down. It could have an upward trend. Sometimes it may have a downward trend. There are also pieces in the application process where you're able to explain and give us a little bit more information behind what is going on if there are things that are just not traditional for you. So please feel free to use that. And then with the recommendations, we're looking for 3 recommendations, and it's really want folks to really highlight your academic strength, your social strength, your personal strength, your characteristics, things like that. So be mindful of who you ask to submit a letter of recommendation for you. And I would highly recommend that you have a conversation with them. there are many times that I have had students ask me, well, I took this course in 9th grade and I haven't had this teacher in 2-3 years. So should I have them submit a letter of recommendation? Because I had a really great time in that class. I got an amazing grade. Yes, you can, but I would recommend having a conversation with that teacher. And then other things in terms of recommendations, I know a lot of students ask, well, can I submit a letter of recommendation from my pastor or my mentor? You can certainly do that. Be very mindful what each school is asking, because I know for Bates, we ask for 2 academics and then 1 from your school counselor. If you want to submit more than that, I believe it's common for the Common App to not accept more than 3. So what I would advise is that you email the school, and they have a general, most schools have a general admission email, or you could email your admission representative within the area. I would highly recommend doing that and submitting, or having the recommender submit the recommendation through that. So you could totally submit more than 3 recommendations. It's okay. Don't feel like, well, my limit is 3 and that's that. You could submit more than that. And then, was it the essay? I'm blanking out on the 3rd piece. What was it? Was it the essay? Okay, great. I see some head nods, so I'm just gonna roll with it. With the essay, that is probably my favorite part of the whole entire application. And I get really excited. I get really emotional. Sometimes I cry. But with the essay, it's a glimpse into who you are. It lets me see your soul. And I think the question that I would ask you is, out of everything else that you're already submitting, what more can you tell me about who you are that I don't know based off of your transcripts or recommendations, some of the activities that you listed, right? What are some things that you want to share about who you are as a person? So those are some of the things that I'm looking for in an essay, and it could be very basic. It could be very traditional, and I'm going to end with one of my favorite essays from a student a few years back, and student talked about having family dinners every Sunday. And that was literally the topic of the essay, family dinners every Sunday. And for that student, you know, it was very basic. You know, she talked about the placement of every seats, where everybody sat every Sunday, what they were eating, the process of making the food. It was very descriptive, which I love because I love food, and I felt like I was at the dinner table eating, and I was very hungry at that moment, because you're reading applications all day, an essay, so you're hungry. So I was really hungry. So it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm drooling at this point. But the essay switched for me, and that's when I realized this is who the student is, and this is who the student wants to go to college and come out being this amazing person based off of her family values. And so she talked about pulling out her cell phone and her brother and just being on technology, right? Teenagers. So I guess her parents got really upset and said, can you please put that away? Like, it's family time. It's time for us to have dinner and da 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 da. And for her, she said, well, that was a moment where she realized that this is her family. This is a family value, right? Having time for each other, having time to talk to each other, check on one another. And she said this is what she wanted to bring to college, right? She wanted to be in a college environment where she's able to actually meet with people and it be a very small school. It'll be somewhere where she could, you know, go to dinner or go to the commons, which is our dining commons, and have dinner with not just students but also faculty and staff, and feel a community within her institution. And so for that, she said, I also want to graduate, and that's something I want to pass on to my children. It's something I want to take with me for the rest of my life. So for me, it felt very personal, but it came from a very basic topic. And I grew to love this essay, and I talk about it all the time just because it's such a random topic, but it meant so much for this student to share a little bit of who she could see herself being in the future. So that's my transcript recommendation essay advice in terms of what we're looking for. But again, I can only speak for Bates College. So that is what we're looking for when we're looking at the application.
I forget what order we're going in, but I can go next. So hello everyone, my name is Nathaniel Lara, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an assistant director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Northwestern. So in terms of recs, essays, and transcripts, I want to start off by saying that Northwestern has something called a holistic review process. This is basically a very fancy word for saying that context is everything. We're going to be looking at you in the context of your specific school. Like my colleague before, she mentioned that your transcript is telling a story, and we'll be looking at that school profile to really understand how you took advantage of the opportunities and the rigor that were available at your school and how you succeeded in them. So especially now, considering everything that's happened, all the craziness in 2020, Northwestern has decided to go test optional. And since we're not going to have those test scores, again, it's your personal choice. We're really not going to hold it against you if you decide not to put them. If you don't have them, or if you have them and you feel like they don't really indicate or a good reflection of your academic ability, that's fine. We still have those transcripts to really tell us how you've been doing in high school, how you've been challenging yourself, how you've succeeded in those courses. We really want a very diverse community. So we're looking for students who are going to be successful at Northwestern. It is academically rigorous, but we also understand that everyone's coming from different backgrounds. And this is where those rec letters and those essays really come into play. So in terms of letters of recommendation, we have one required from a high school counselor and another required from a teacher who teaches a core academic subject. So that is math, science, social science, English. You are more than welcome to get additional recommendation letters, whether it's like pastor, like there was mentioned before, or I don't know, a coordinator for your volunteer group or something else like that. Definitely totally doable. I will say that I read everything. As the reader for your application, I'm going to read it from start to finish. So I really want you to take into consideration that you're being very strategic about who you're asking for those letters of recommendation. If you want to let me know that you're good at math, I'm going to see your grades on your transcript, and one recommendation letter from a math teacher is enough. I don't need 10 to understand that you're good at math. I kind of already got it with that first letter of recommendation and from your grades. I also really want to highlight that you want to, one, really be thankful for the people who are writing your letter of recommendations. It's a lot of time, and there are a lot of students who are asking them. So yes, go and have a conversation with them so that they not only understand who you were in the classroom, but also about where your interests are going right now, what you intend to study, kind of like your thought process. And also send them a thank you note. They're taking the time to write very beautiful recommendation letters, and you should definitely be thankful because they're a part of making your application whole. Now, for the essays, this is like the one place that you can really craft your own story. You can't change your transcript. That's 3+ years in the making. Your activities list, you can add on other ones, but they're not going to show that continuity. And your letters of rec aren't written by you. So like the essay is the one place where you really are able to use your voice. And I really want to emphasize that I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear. I really want, it's a very cliche advice, but it really is your own genuine voice. And I really, like was mentioned before, I want to highlight that I want to get to know you as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to use an example, theater. Let's say you are very invested in theater. I'm going to see that on your activities list. I'll see that you're involved in multiple productions and multiple groups and have multiple roles. I'll see maybe you submit a letter of recommendation from your theater director. Also going to talk more about that. If you want to speak more about your involvement in theater in your essay, you can totally do so. However, like my colleague mentioned, it's totally okay if you talk about something random like your love for grilled cheese and connect it to something bigger. I just really want to get to know you as much as I can since I'm not able to have like a conversation with you. And this also brings me to the supplemental essay. A lot of schools are going to have something along the lines of why this school. So we have something called Why Northwestern. If I am taking the time to read the entirety of your application, I also want to know that you are taking the time to research my school. I want to know that you have gone on our website, that you've taken advantage of our virtual content to learn more information, that whether it's from events like this where you're hearing from me or from our students or from my other colleagues in my office, really taking advantage of that to understand why it is that you're interested in applying to Northwestern. Additionally, if I am able to like erase Northwestern's name and put in a different schools and it still sounds okay, that means it's not specific enough. This is where doing your research really comes into play. We want specifics. Is there a specific course that you're really interested in taking? A specific professor you'd love to do research with? A specific program or a specific student organization that you really want to be a part of? And this year, we altered our supplemental essay question because we understand it's a two-way street. Not only is it what Northwestern can give to you, but how do you also envision yourself contributing? Like I mentioned, we are going to try to enroll a very diverse class with different interests, perspectives, and backgrounds. We have 8,000 undergraduates from over 95 countries and all 50 states. So we want to enroll people who want to be at Northwestern, who are going to contribute to the community and make it to be continue as inclusive and as welcoming as it is. So not only is it what we can give to you, but recognizing that mutual relationship, how you envision yourself contributing to the Northwestern experience and community. Are you doing, I'm going to go back to that theater example. Let's say you are involved in theater in high school. Do you expect to continue doing theater at Northwestern? They're one of our student organizations. Or do you, if you're in sports, are you going to be, continuing in a varsity or an intramural or a club sport? Do you want to be a captain? These different ways of really engaging not only the opportunities are available at a school, but how they align with your interests and what you want to do. But I'm going to leave it there and pass it on to whoever is next. Very happy to, once we have the time for a Q&A section, to talk more about all these different topics.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Levine. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Springfield College, and I work with all students from Amherst Regional High School. So if you're applying to Springfield, I'll be the counselor reviewing your application at Springfield College. At Springfield, we also really value a holistic review application, a holistic review of the application. It really ties into our mission statement and our humanics philosophy of wanting a really well-rounded student who's balanced in spirit, mind, and body, and who's interested in pursuing a career in leadership and service to others. That's been our mission statement since day one as an institution. So we're still looking for that type of student at Springfield. So definitely we're looking at everything in your application. I also read everything that comes through, from your list of activities to your essay, to your letters of recommendation, to your transcript. We also really want to focus on making sure we're accepting students who are going to be successful at Springfield and who are challenging themselves appropriately in high school. So again, we're also looking at your school profile to see what's being offered to you and how you're taking advantage of the different opportunities that you have within the curriculum that's available to you at Amherst Regional. We do have a handful of programs at Springfield, and I know we typically have some students from Amherst Regional who are interested in our more limited enrollment programs. So physical therapy, physician assistant, occupational therapy, and athletic training. Those programs in particular, we're definitely looking for students who are taking advantage of those more rigorous courses, who are continuing their math and science sequence through their senior year, instead of taking just, math through algebra 2 or 3 years of a lab science, which are our standard admissions requirements. So we definitely want to see students in those programs that are, stepping beyond what's required for admission at Springfield and continuing to challenge themselves. We also really value the letter of recommendation. We require just one to apply to Springfield College, and that can be from your school counselor or teacher. I always recommend to students, though, submit 2 or 3 or more letters of recommendation. I'm going to read every single one. Some of those limited enrollment programs do require additional letters of recommendation from either a science teacher or a healthcare professional. So if you are applying to one of those programs, you're definitely going to need to submit more than one, but a couple different letters of recommendation give us a few different viewpoints of who you are. So if you have a coach or a mentor or a supervisor who you'd like to ask for a letter of recommendation in addition to your teacher or school counselor, that is a-okay with us. We're happy to take a look at those letters. I agree. Your essay is your voice in your application. So you should use your essay to tell your story. I always tell students, think of what would be helpful for us to know in your application that's not evident to us through your letters of recommendation, through your co-curricular experiences, or a story that's really, really important to you. So we're a common application school. There's 7 different common application topics, including one that's a really open-ended topic. So feel free to pick the prompt that you connect the most with. Because unless I'm meeting with you one-on-one through a virtual interview or a school visit or something of that sort, your essay is really how I'm getting to know who you are, because as was mentioned previously, everything else in your application is really submitted from your teachers. Your letters of recommendations are from other individuals, not yourself. Your transcript is showing me your academics snapshot over 4 years, but it's not telling your personal story. So we really like to get to know who you are through that essay. We also have a Why Springfield College essay, and same thing that was mentioned before. We really want students to share with us why they're passionate about Springfield, what they can bring to our institution to make Springfield College an even better place. So definitely make sure that you're taking time on that question. And for those limited enrollment programs, we also have supplement application questions specific to those programs. What our faculty are looking for in those responses and our admissions office is your demonstrated interest in those majors. Physical therapy, physician assistant, occupational therapy, and athletic training are such competitive programs at Springfield. We want to make sure that we are accepting students who not only know that they want to be a PA, for example, but know that they want to be a PA at Springfield College. So in those supplement essays, show us that you've done the work. You know that this is definitely the field that you want to go into, and how you've come to that conclusion. That's really, really important to us. I do also want to note that Springfield College is completely test optional for fall 2021. We did move test optional for the majority of our programs for spring 2020, for fall 2020. But this year we recognize that has been a really big barrier and challenge for students, and we want to eliminate that challenge. So even our programs that were still requiring test scores, physical therapy, physician assistant, occupational therapy, and athletic training, and our education programs, we are waiving that test score requirement for this current year. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the next person.
I think it's me. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Pura. I use she, her pronouns. And I am one of the reps from Simmons University. Simmons is a small liberal arts women-centered institution in the Fenway area of Boston. How do we define women-centered? We define that as meaning a school that is historically a women's college, accepting trans and non-binary students. So that's how we define it. And a major component of how we personally review applications, as many of my colleagues have said, is that holistic review process. And we're also looking for attributes of leadership. Now, leadership doesn't necessarily have to mean you were captain of the volleyball team or lead in a school play. Of course, it can mean that, but also, do you display passion in what you do as you display in your application? What do you like to do? What are your goals? What is a skill that you've really honed over the years, that you've really spent time to work on? So we're looking for all those central components, someone who has demonstrated those leadership skills and who has the potential and the drive to get there. So that's a major component as well. And I'm actually going to share my screen because I do work better with visuals. So I'm just going to do that briefly, if that works. Now, can people see my screen? Okay, great. In terms of sort of the overall application of what we're looking at, for transcripts, especially when it comes to the high school transcripts, we are going to be looking for all those components. We want to see that you've been, of course, taking those core courses, but also that you've been challenging yourself. Have you taken courses that are maybe outside of your comfort zone? If it's available to you in your school, have you been taking the opportunity to do those APs or take those honors courses? Those are all components to consider. And especially when it comes to our more focused programs like the nursing program, which people apply to directly, and our physical therapy program, we are going to be looking a little bit more at those math and science courses. We want to see that you've been getting in those prerequisites. So have you been taking courses like statistics and biology and chemistry? So all of that we're really going to be looking at. So especially within those specialized programs, that you will be able to really jump right into the curriculum your first year. So we will be looking at that in general. Now, in terms of letters of recommendation, we're pretty simple. At least one teacher, one counselor recommendation. We do accept up to 3, so you can throw in another teacher recommendation there. I also recommend personally for students that are targeting those nursing and physical therapy programs, maybe you do really want to ask your science or your math teacher or both to write you a recommendation so that they can really speak to the quality of your work, how you've improved, especially let's say there's one class that maybe was not as successful as another, and you really want them to provide that perspective of how much you may have improved in that course. So those are all really components to consider. And as my colleagues have mentioned, whoever you ask to do your recommendation letter, making sure you take a moment to pull them aside, chat with them, and tell them about yourself a little bit more. If there's more about you that you think they should know, that's essential to their recommendation as well. So for us this year, like many institutions this year, we are going test optional, which we were not in the past. So this I'm really excited about as well. And this will apply to all programs. So nursing, physical therapy, everything. You do not need to send us your test scores. You absolutely can if you would like, but certainly not necessary. But if you do end up sending us those test scores, we will review them based on sort of our review criteria of that. But of course, my favorite is the college essay. And forgive me with my SpongeBob references, I always find there's like a SpongeBob episode or scene that applies to everything in life. So I applied to the college essay. And I agree with what everyone's already said. So, I just want to reiterate, this essay is a reflection of you. We want to learn about you and not what you think that we might want to hear. So in terms of language, talk to us the way you would talk to someone. Use your own voice, and don't feel like you have to go into a thesaurus and dig out language that you think would apply to the college. So again, you're giving voice to your application. We want to know, basically, essentially, can you answer the prompt clearly and analytically? When you go on the Common Application, you're going to see a bunch of different options. And from all of those choices, you can really apply anything from your life to it that makes it relevant. But just making sure that, when you do make your essay, that you go back to that prompt and you ask yourself, did I answer that question clearly? And not only did I answer that, but did I tell the school something about myself? Again, it's all, it can be something that you're passionate about, but in the end, it has to reflect you. And of course, it also reflects your potential. So of course, we're not going to expect college level writing because you haven't gotten to college yet. We just want to see your best work that it shows that you spent the time to really think about, how you're going to approach this essay, and really wanting to show a polished result in the end. And so, finally, this is more of a Simmons thing. We do have interviews as a component of the application process. This is completely optional, but if Simmons specifically is a place you really, would like to see yourself at, interviews can only serve to help you more. We keep it super chill. It's just the chance for us to put a face to the application. So by the time I'm sitting here and looking at your transcripts and your recs and your essay, I can also reflect upon our meeting together. So this is all really meant to help you in this process.
I believe I'm next. Hi, everyone. And everyone is asking such great questions right now in the chat, and I really cannot wait to get to that portion to answer them all. But first and foremost, my name is Matt Sykes. I'm an undergraduate admissions counselor at American International College located in Springfield. We're a small liberal arts private institution. And first and foremost, I just want to thank you all for being here. You all are doing the first step towards making a great application is you're doing your research. You're asking the questions. You are doing your research on these schools that are putting that information out there so you can make the best application that you possibly can. So I just want to agree with and echo the sentiment of my colleagues that American International College, my goodness, sorry. We have a very holistic approach as well. One of our mottos here is you are more than a number, and that's been as true as long as I can remember. We do try to get to know you as a person and try to get to know you and what you can offer to the institution and what we can offer to you, and not just the numbers, not just the GPA, and not just anything like that. So when reviewing the application process, for me personally, of course, the official transcript is extremely important. It's probably the most important aspect of an application, so everyone can see your GPA or your prerequisites and that kind of thing. But we do like to see it as a big picture process. And like my colleagues, I read everything from top to bottom all the time. So of course the transcript is important and getting those prereqs in are important, but it's not everything. And I think my colleagues would echo that sentiment as well. It's, meeting those requirements are great, but learning who you are as a student is, I believe, much more important. And I would jump straight to the essay here because I believe we've kind of touched on everything regarding the transcripts in this meeting. But a personal essay really does give you a better view of who you are as a person and as a student and why you are going into the fields that you want to go into. So Nathaniel uses that theater arts example. What I would like to know in your personal essay is, yeah, you're interested in theater arts. I can see that on your transcript. I can see that in your letters of recommendation. I can see it in your extracurriculars. And that's great. But what I would love to know is why. Why are you interested in theater arts? Why are you so passionate about this? And how can you bring that passion to the institution, and how can we help you, expand that passion and bring that out into the world? Where our main focus is getting you into the college and then getting you out. We want you to, move past our institution, learn the things you need to learn, have the experiences you want to experience, and then bring that out to the world. So our essays are, very similar in the sense that we really are just looking to see who you are as a student, who you are as a person, why you're pursuing the educational path that you are, and I read them constantly. And I would say they're extremely important, especially to me and the other counselors at American International College, because I've had students who, like we spoke about earlier, nursing programs. A lot of programs have prerequisites, GPA requirements, class requirements. At AIC, our nursing program requires a 2.5 GPA and a chemistry grade of a C+ or better. That's great, but we're also looking for, proficiency in science classes and math classes. So it would help to see, you had anatomy and physiology or a statistics course or something along those lines. But what I like to see in these essays are, I've had students that have met the nursing requirement, have met the chemistry requirement, but may have not done so well in other science or statistic-based classes, or didn't take them at all. So they didn't, they didn't show off that rigor, or that they weren't solely focused on that program. Now that could have been for many other reasons. They could have had a difficult year that year, or maybe they chose to go down the nursing path their senior year or junior year, and they didn't get a chance to take that class. The personal essay is important because you can explain those circumstances. You can explain a GPA circumstance. You can explain, how you fell into the path of wanting to go into nursing. And I've had students who have met those requirements, but didn't show that they took anatomy and physiology or statistics or something along those lines. And I thought maybe this pathway may not be right for them, or maybe they won't excel in this pathway, and I'll have a talk with that student. But personal essays, I've had students that have said, no, this is something happened in my life. I'm so passionate about this. I know I can do this. This is something that I truly want to do. And I fought for those students. I've said, you know what, you belong to be here. You deserve to be here because you truly want to be here. I would much rather, and I think I would say the same for most of my counselors here at American International College, is that if we would much rather a student who is extremely passionate and devoted to the path that they want to go down, and that may be missing, anatomy and physiology or something along those lines, than a student that just checks all the boxes and is just kind of, iffy about the program. We really want you to bring that passion, that dedication to the college, and we really look at that. That's one of the most important things for me in an application is a well thought out essay that explains who you are, explains why you're doing this, explains what you want to do with this, that kind of thing. At AIC, the essay is actually optional. It's not required at all. We don't have a required essay for your application. All we do require is an official transcript. But of course, you kind of want to have as robust of an application as possible. So I would highly suggest, no matter what school you're applying to, whether it is required or not, please, an essay. I think that's a great way to show who you are as a person and everything that I stated before. Now, moving on to the letters of recommendation, at AIC, those are also optional. Not required at all, but I would highly suggest it. Like my colleague said earlier, that I really would choose someone that knows you. I wouldn't ask a teacher that you had, one class with and you did fairly well, and you had a great time, and you thought you hit it well off with this teacher. I would say pick someone that really knows you, that can speak to your character, that can maybe explain one of those circumstances that you would explain in a personal essay. I've had teachers and counselors reach out to me from students to kind of give an in-person kind of recommendation. That all works. That's all great. But of course, choose someone that really does know you, because if it really is kind of a rubber stamped template kind of recommendation letter, we do read it. We really do drill down on applications and really read everything from top to bottom, because we do want to get that personal connection with you as a student instead of just a name on a transcript. And if it is kind of a template, this student was great, you should admit him type of letter of recommendation, that's fine, that's great, but it doesn't give us a real glimpse into who you are, and we do notice those things. For our application for SATs and ACT scores, we are completely test optional. We always have been, and I don't believe that we will be changing that anytime in the foreseeable future. So it's not just a pandemic type of thing. We are SAT optional, but of course you can always self-report them. You can choose to waive them, or you can choose to send them in. It isn't a detriment. I've had students decide not to send in an SAT, or I've had students who have decided to send it in and the scores weren't that great. But I don't look at them and say, oh, well, this student clearly can't do it. We don't look at it that way. We look at you as a well-rounded person, and who you are as a student. So it's not just about the number. So of course you can always send it in. All these things that are optional won't be a detriment to you if you don't send it in. But I would highly suggest that you do, because we really do want to get to know you as a person, not just a student, and what you can offer to the institution. Like my colleague said, it's a two-way street. We want to see what you can offer to us and what we can offer to you, and then what you can offer to the world afterwards, because that's what we're trying to create here, is the world's next, business leaders in nursing and health science and sciences and things like that. So yeah, I would say that it's a big picture, holistic approach, but we do look at the details, and we do look at who you are as a student, and we want to create a relationship with you, and we would hope that you, as you are creating your application, that you would aim to try and create a relationship with us as well. Okay, are we going to just start answering questions, or?
I should just go right into it.
Yeah, I can speak about so how our admission process has changed at Northwestern. So I forgot to preface with this, but Northwestern is a private medium-sized university in Evanston, Illinois, so just 3 miles north of Chicago. And in terms of being test optional, like I mentioned before, it's your personal choice. And we're not going to hold it against you. So let's say you do have some test scores and you're proud of them. You're proud of the score that you got. You are still able to self-report your scores to Northwestern, so you don't have to pay those, $20-ish to send the official report. And we still super score. So if you're one of the very few people who is able to take more than one sitting of a standardized exam, just to self-report them as is, and our system will recalculate a higher score based on the highest sub-scores. And if you're not submitting tests, a lot of our students are asking, like, are you really test optional? Like, is it like a nudge? We are, and that's, again, because we're going back to the holistic review process. We don't have the test scores, but we still have so much more to look at. And in terms of being able to look more at your academics, this is where the transcript really comes into play. I don't know if other colleagues.
I'm just going to add that we've been test optional for about 40 plus years, which is really cool. Felt really good about not having to change anything with our admission process. But, you know, for students who do submit testing, who decide not to submit testing, for us, we always say the transcript will hold the most weight no matter what. So it's always going to be the transcript, because it's 4 years of academic work versus 4 hours of taking your SAT or ACT. So for us, we value that the most.
Yeah, I'll say for Simmons that it is new for us being test optional. So my colleagues and I at Simmons are just super excited because we've been pushing for that. And then I'm hoping, because I noticed there was also a question earlier about, you know, will we remain so? I hope so. And that's just something to check in with us later on in the year. So I think definitely the school is seeing this as a trial run year. But everyone in the office is definitely behind making it a permanent part. So it will definitely be new for us going through the test optional route. So we're really excited to do that. And so, yes, like my colleagues have said, we will be then looking maybe a bit more at that transcripts. But overall, looking at that application holistically, which we've always done. And in terms of sort of the average GPA, we do look around 4. The transcript is around a 3.7, give or take. So we will be looking at all those components.
Yeah, so from Springfield College, we moved to test optional for the majority of our programs, as I mentioned last fall, for fall 2020 students. So only those select programs were still requiring test scores. We're going to, continue to monitor. We're also crossing our fingers that hopefully for at least a few of those programs will continue to be test optional, but we'll definitely have more information as we get closer to the fall 2020 cycle. But the same thing with Springfield. We've always placed, even when we weren't test optional, we placed the majority of our emphasis on the transcript, because that's a more accurate snapshot of who you are as a student than one test that you took, one time or a couple times to get the best possible super score. But I've always said, even when we weren't test optional, or for those programs, if we do continue to require test scores, 75% of our emphasis is always on the transcript at least. And then the other percentage is on the test scores. So the transcript we'll look at a little bit more closely for those more competitive programs this year. And I have a feeling we're going to look even more closely at those supplement questions for those more competitive programs that we typically would require test scores for this year as well.
Okay, maybe we can just jump to this question. For guidance counselor recommendation letters, do you recommend that the student get to know them well before writing the letter? So I would say at AIC, yes. I would, and I believe my colleagues would mirror that sentiment, is that I really do believe that it's extremely important to have a good personal relationship with whoever's writing the recommendation letter. Just because, like I said, with a holistic, big picture approach. We really do care about you more than just your GPA and just your application. We really do want to get to know you as a person, and having, like I said, those rubber stamp template recommendation letters really don't, convey your story to us at all. We really do want to get to know you for who you are. So I would absolutely recommend that you at least have a conversation or two, a few conversations. Pick someone that really does know you as a person, not just your academic achievements, though that helps as well, but definitely who you are as a person first.
Yes, I agree. In terms of getting to know your teachers, or whether it's, you set aside some time to meet with them, get to know them. And because, we are living in a pretty virtual world right now, I'd like to say that people are more available than ever to meet with you. So setting up a Zoom call, setting up a phone call, just asking your teacher to just come aside and meet with you. And so that's going to be easier more than ever to do something like that. So the natural introvert within myself, kind of at first is like, oh, I don't want to. But, it's a necessary component. And your teacher, of course, if they agree to write your recommendation, they're going to write you a good recommendation. They want to help you. So just making sure that, whether it's a teacher you know well, or maybe a teacher you don't know so well, that they know, what your goals are, what you hope to study, and especially when it comes to specific schools, why you want to go to these specific institutions.
Yeah, definitely echoing that. If you have any juniors in the room, definitely try to get started with getting to know your counselor right now. It will really help once you get into the college application process. And if you're able to take advantage of the more flexible scheduling that we're experiencing now, take advantage of that. But I also want to highlight that we understand that, well, I'm not very familiar with your school because it's my first time being a rep with Northwestern. I will say that we understand that sometimes you just meet with your counselor once a year. And sometimes you don't have the time or aren't able to develop that strong relationship. So if you do feel a little bit worried about maybe not having a very strong counselor recommendation, this is where your teacher recommendations and supplemental recommendations really come into play. And I want to give one more tidbit for those teacher recommendations. If you can choose, for example, if you got an A+ in the class, and you want that teacher to write your recommendation, but like you never met with them and you were just stellar naturally and didn't get really a time to interact. And if you have the option of, for example, you got a B+ in the class, but like you really worked your butt off and we're always meeting with that teacher to try to ensure that you were on track to do better and you were showing so much effort, that teacher, despite the fact that you got a B+ in it as opposed to an A+, is probably going to be able to speak more about who you are academically and how driven you are as a student.
I'd also just like to add that, don't be afraid to ask teachers or guidance counselors for recommendations. They want to help you no matter what. So I know, like we were speaking about earlier, is, the inner introvert in me maybe doesn't want to go up to a teacher or a guidance counselor and ask for a recommendation letter, or don't know how to go about starting that process. Please reach out to them. I meet with guidance counselors every single week, every single day almost, and they really do want to help. So I would say start that relationship as early as possible, and they are very happy to open that door for you.
I could definitely start off with the next question.
I finally figured out how to get myself back on board. Sorry about that weirdness. Just to let you know, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I think this is probably a great question for us to wrap up on. Whoever wants to take it, please go ahead.
Yeah, I could tackle it in my own way. But I think in terms of what sets you apart or doing things to set you apart, I think there you have to really rely on the essay, because not everybody's going to have your essay. Your story is going to be very different from anybody else's story. The way you tell it, it's going to be different. So I think that is really what will make you to stand apart from others. So really try to work on that, focus on that in and utilize the resources that are available for you in your high school, right? Your guidance counselor, your English teacher. There's a really cool website you could go to if you type up essays that worked, where you could read essays from previous students that have gone to many different colleges. And maybe that could help you get your creative juices flowing in terms of topic choice, the way that they went about it, and how the essay flowed, just to get your mind going. So maybe that's something that you could also do. And then really, in terms of editing your paper, or your essay, I would highly recommend having a conversation with someone about that, especially if they're not your English teacher. Because I feel like if you have someone who is not your English teacher write all over your essay, we lose your voice. And we want your voice, because your voice is what will make you stand apart from everybody else. That's my 2 cents.
I completely agree. I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think the essay is a great piece that you're going to be able to tackle right now as a senior. The other thing I would say to take advantage of for schools that offer them is the interview. Springfield College also offers an optional interview opportunity, and that's a great chance for you to sit down with us either virtually, or we are offering socially distanced in-person interviews in our office for students who meet the Massachusetts state travel guidelines. So we are able to sit down with you and have a conversation and get to know you a little bit more. You know, we might talk about some things that come up in your application, but oftentimes there are things that come up in the interview that wouldn't have been disclosed in the application otherwise, that are really helpful for us to get to know who you are. So the interview is also a great thing to look at, to take advantage of.
I just wanted to add very quickly, Grant, this is a great question, because I would say that one other aspect that we haven't touched on to set yourselves apart is using us as a resource. I do have students reach out to me to start forming that relationship with me as an admissions counselor, and to ask questions and to get advice. And we're more than happy to help as well. If there is a college that you're interested in, and you can find the admissions counselor for your territory, or who would be in charge of looking at your application. For me, I'm in charge of this area of Western Massachusetts. So if you did intend to apply to AIC, I would be the one to review your application. I would say get in touch with an admissions counselor at a college and say, hey, what can I do? What more can I say? What more can I do to set myself apart? And of course, we're not going to give the answer for you and write your essay for you, but we can absolutely give you advice. And I've had students call me, and after the phone call, I said, wow, this student really does want to be here. They really do care. They really do care about their essay. They care about their application. So I would suggest using us as a resource as well, not just your guidance counselor at your high school or your teacher, but us at the colleges that you're interested in.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Yeah, email me. I think all of us are, all from the Western Mass territory. We're going to be reading applications from this area. So, make sure to ask questions. Even if you feel like it's a really small question, don't be afraid to reach out. I'll be happy to answer it. And especially I've found in the past that the students who've reached out to me, whether it's been email or it's been setting up an individual appointment, which you can do now virtually, or whether it's just calling me on the phone, I remember that student more. Students who were really engaged throughout the whole process. So, don't be afraid to work with us. That's our job. Apart from reading your application, we want to be with you throughout that whole process, and we want to help you craft that application to the best of your ability. So yeah, use your resources. Reach out. We're always happy to chat.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been so helpful to have all of you, especially to hear your sort of different perspectives from your different schools. In behalf of it's about 17 people that were joining us, thanks to the students who put questions in the chat. That's really what makes people want to join in, so they know that you're listening. So on behalf of ARHS, this is exactly the perfect time for us to be wrapping up. And those of you who were here from the student body, there's of course the whole second group of panels to join in. So thanks to everyone, and I'm going to end our broadcast now.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.